the Constitution says that all Kenyans have a right to adequate housing. The Constitution says that. And so when you talk about whose responsibility, it's the government's responsibility to make certain that housing at every price point for every social status of every Kenyan has access to adequate housing for themselves. And so when you find yourself living in inadequate housing environments because there's no provision for enough in regards to the stock or supply, that is the government's responsibility. And so it's their responsibility to provide clear pathways, clear incentives, clear mechanisms for developers or themselves to even build the housing that's needed and that's demanded. And so that's when you find people building in perhaps shoddy means, and then you have houses that then collapse. They're not necessarily being monitored, but the developers know that there's a demand, and so they cleverly figure out ways to build houses to meet a demand that they know that is out there. And so when you ask the responsibility for safeguarding, for ensuring, it is the government's. Now, I do believe that there is such a thing as a professional activism, and so if you are an urban developer, an urban planner, if you are a developer, I believe you do have a right, if you will, to do your work ethically, to do it in a way that it does provide something to society as well as to your business. And so there is such a thing that if I am sitting in a seat and I have a professional skill, I see myself sitting in that seat as an activist on behalf of who I'm working for. So I think that there is responsibilities and rights on both sides.
In terms of public investment into low-cost housing, the last bids that were done in Nairobi, for example, were in the 80s. So what has happened in between here? We've had a lot of informalization of housing and so on. So what therefore needs to be done in moving forward? We need, first of all, to make sure that we have sustainable urbanization strategies that are done so that people can, for example, if we are from Kitale, there should be enough for people to be there so that not everybody is moving to Nairobi and so on. Secondly, we need then to think about how to prevent the informal settlement, at the same time, how to improve what we are having. So we need to have a dual strategy to do that. The other bit also we need to do, speaking about Nairobi, we must of necessity think of densification, because we cannot afford to start sending our people going to Thika that they are still in Nairobi or Machakos because they are going low-rise. So we need to start thinking of how we are actually going to densify the whole of the Eastlands so that we can accommodate people and we can put on the market a large stock of housing that will bring the rents down. Because also what we have in the housing is just crazy. I mean, if you look at the cost of land, it's just impossible. To start saying that you can actually have a structure that can then be afforded by someone who's just coming from college or so, it's almost impossible, and so on. So these things really need to be looked at. We need to look at all issues of technologies, we need to look at standards and so on, a whole lot of things that need to be done, but done in a very programmatic way, so that it's not a one-off. We need to have a clear program that we are actually going through. Otherwise, again, this is another time bomb.
Yeah, it is a responsibility of government to ensure that those services are provided and they are brought to the people, and also to make sure that those development plans are implemented for the benefit of the people. But as you clearly know, the Constitution says that the government is supposed to provide health or food to everyone. Nobody should go hungry. But how many people go hungry? There are millions, isn't it? There are thousands every day. But then the point that we need to all the time remember is that it is our responsibility to tell the government, hey, wait a minute, are you aware that I've not eaten for the last 5 days? Okay, wait a minute, are you aware that I don't have a house, you see? So it's also, you see, the government will be happy when there's no complaint, when nobody is pointing out these things. That is what it likes most. When everybody is happy, keeping quiet. And because we don't know sometimes, so we don't stand up and say, wait, this is provided for in the Constitution, but we are not doing it. So that is now where we fail as a citizen, as people, because we don't also point out our rights so that we can enjoy them. And even in criminal law, you know that there must be a complainant, isn't it? You can't just, okay, if somebody slaps you and you kept quiet, what happens? Nothing happens. But if you go and report, the first thing they will want to say, who is complaining? And that's when your issue will be sorted. That's how government works. So if we are complacent we are happy, we are enjoying, yeah, fine. That is how the government wants.
As a follow-up to the gentleman's question, is the conflict between public property or public land and the need for housing, especially informal dwellings, when we have population surges like we have had in Nairobi. Is this actually causing the privatization of public land by individuals in informal sectors?
In life, there will be conflicts, right? There will be conflicts. I mean, I think that we have conflicts between human life, between wildlife, between agricultural land, between residential land, between, just in life, there is going to be conflict. And so I think that one of the things that that good planning does is to create some balance between all of those demands on the space that you need. And so I think that that's just another consequence of poor planning, or not necessarily poor planning, but poor participation in planning. Because if you don't have all of the voices, and to pick up what Elijah was saying in regards to people speaking for what they want, how you want to prioritize the resources that are there, because that's really what planning does, is to prioritize resources and to get enough voices in, then you will have some people saying, I need a larger chunk of this for whatever personal reason that I think that I need this. And it's not in some dialogue or deliberation in regards to what are the trade-offs of the spaces that we need to make certain that the spaces work for everyone. And so that's, I think, you can't get away from conflict. You can't get away from needing to spread out the diverse uses of land. But what is missing, and what is you must have, is good public participation inside of planning, inside of execution of plans. And that's one of our great challenges. I want to make certain that is a huge consequence to us struggling with this issue.
The bit, if I were to answer you direct, one of the very direct bit where we had that conflict, once upon a time, this city, most of the land in this city belonged to the public sector, either government, railway, or city council those days. The public land was given to the private. Then thereafter you want now to go and acquire it and build a low-cost housing. It is not possible. So I'm just hoping that we never go back through those cycles. So there one would say a question of conflict does arise between the public and the private.